Hey everybody, Joel here. So we've got a 2015 Hyundai Santa Fe. This is my wife's vehicle, and we've had a little bit of a fuel smell after it's been driven. So we're trying to hunt that down and see where it's coming from. I think I have located the origination point of that. So we'll go ahead and take a look-see and try to get it fixed up. Thanks for watching. So you can see down in here, here's the high pressure fuel pump, and right underneath the intake line is where the drip is. It was dripping pretty heavily when the vehicle was running. There you see a drip. Extremely dangerous situation. Spent quite a bit of time trying to hunt this leak down. The vehicle smelled like gas. I made an appointment at the dealer, and they're like 3 weeks out to be able to get it in, and I told them it was kind of an emergency. It smells like gas. They said, yeah, well, you can drop it off, and if we can look at it, we'll look at it. So just been trying to diagnose it on our own here, and we had taken this the other side of the fuel pump into the rail out and cleaned that up, figuring maybe that's where the drip was coming from. But now that I have tested it, I can see that that thing is leaking. So we'll pull this apart. We're gonna let the engine cool down a bit, and then we'll pull that apart and see what we've got. So I've taken a little bit of care to disconnect the battery, take the negative off. Also pulled the fuse out for the fuel pump, and disconnected the wiring on the fuel pump itself. And I did break free this connector here. So I'll back that out, and then we'll get it retightened and see if we can get that thing to stop leaking, or see if there's a bad O-ring in there or what we might have. So I've got the nut off of there and pulled it apart. That flare fitting seemed to be seated in there nice and square. It's hard to tell, obviously, once you pull that nut off. Anything can happen, but I thought maybe it had loosened up in this little seam right in here. But that is not loose at all. So I don't know if that drip was coming out from underneath these threads. I can't imagine that you're supposed to put any dope or tape on these threads. That's not how this works. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to try to get it fitted back on there again, make sure it's good and square, and get this nut tightened back on there. Maybe it just was not tight enough. I don't know. The vehicle was just in for an oil change less than 100 miles ago when it started leaking. So, or maybe even before that. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get that fitted back together, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, that's all tightened up. So we'll go ahead and reconnect our wiring here. And we'll come over here and put the fuse back in and get the battery set back together. Okay, I'll get these tightened up and I'll get that fuse replaced. Fuel pump was right back here, 15 amp. It'll say right on the diagram, and we'll go ahead and try to fire it up. Okay, hook, hook. Turn it off. Well, that was even worse than before. Yeah, that was worse. So I'm finding out that the high pressure line might have a leak in it of some type. And I was thinking, how in the world can I check to find if there's a leak? Because nothing is visible. So my wife came up with a great idea of putting some soap on it and then shooting some air in the tube. So I've got one of those rags that's got plenty of soap in it, suds. So we'll do that. And I've just put a couple of pounds in my compressor here and put the end on one end of the tube and your thumb on the other end. And look at the bubble. There's a crack in this tube, ever so small, and it's causing a major leak right out of the fuel pump. So now we know for a fact that this fuel line is bad, and we'll go ahead and get it replaced. I did check at O'Reilly. It's $100 for one of these, but I can't get it for about 4 or 5 days. So we're gonna do some checking around town again tomorrow. See what we can come up with. Made a trip to O'Reilly Auto Parts this morning, and here is the part, the fuel line that has the leak in it. It's got a pinhole, and then here is the new part. Direct replacement. O'Reilly had one, and it was $60. So we'll go ahead and put this one back in and see if that takes care of the problem. So I know it's really hard to see, but the nut for the bottom is way down here, and it is tricky to get on, but I am getting it spun on there with a long screwdriver. I've taken apart several of these brackets and clamps and so on so I could get down there better, but that is probably the trickiest part, is getting that end in and weaving that new pipe or the new fuel line back up and around and then up into the fuel pump. So it is a little bit tricky. Just take your time, make sure you don't cross thread. Don't cross thread that nut so that flare is going to leak down at the bottom end, because you don't want that. So just take your time, get that threaded on, and it should work fine. I had to pull the car into the garage, but I got this pipe. It started to rain out, storm is moving in, so I was able to quickly get these flare fittings tightened up, the one onto the fuel pump and the one down here. Let's see if we can get onto it here. Where is that bugger? Way down in there. Yeah, there you can see. No, that's not it. There it is, hiding way down there. That one's the bugger to get on, but you just got to loosen up a bunch of different things like I'd mentioned and get it on nice and snug. Doesn't have to be over tightened. I think that might have been part of the trouble. And the other one was over tightening. When it was leaking, there was a pinhole on this one, and then I gave it a little bit of a snug up, and I think I just made it worse. I exasperated the situation, so that would be a tip. Don't over tighten these. But it was leaking to begin with, had a pinhole in that pipe, so $60. O'Reilly, thank you O'Reilly for coming through, that was great. And I think we are good to go. Not a bad fix. I'm not a mechanic by any means, so just take everything I say with a grain of salt. I learn as I go. And thank you for those of you that have posted stuff on YouTube. I try to do the same thing, just to try to help each other out. So hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe, and we will see you all on the next video.